What happens when the man you married turns out to be someone you never really knew? When the gentle father tying his daughter's shoelaces was once trained to end lives with his bare hands? Today's story will show you that the quietest people sometimes carry the loudest secrets. Stay until the end to discover how one woman's perfect marriage shattered and rebuilt itself in a single heartbeat. And please, hit that like button and comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels across the world. The morning Isabella Kane would later divide her life into before and after began with cappuccino foam and her daughter's laughter. Not her daughter. Not biologically. Lily was Ethan's, 9 years old, gap-toothed, with braids that never stayed neat no matter how carefully Ethan worked them each morning. But after 2 years of marriage, Isabella had stopped making the distinction in her head. Lily was hers in every way that mattered. They were walking through the Cathedral District, that gleaming heart of the city where steel and glass towers reached toward a sky so blue it looked computer-generated. It was 8:47 a.m. on a Thursday in early October, and the air carried that particular urban autumn smell: coffee, exhaust, the sweet decay of leaves struggling to survive in sidewalk planters. Isabella checked her phone for the third time in as many minutes. Her design firm, Kane & Associates, was presenting to the Riverside Development Commission at 10. 18 months of work compressed into a 90-minute pitch. Her assistant had texted twice already. Board members arriving early. Should we start setup? You're doing the thing, Ethan said beside her. Isabella looked up. What thing? The thing where your shoulders creep up to your ears and you forget to breathe. His voice carried that particular gentle amusement that had first caught her attention 3 years ago at a community garden fundraiser. He'd been kneeling in dirt, teaching Lily the difference between weeds and wildflowers, and something about the patience in his hands had made Isabella stop and stare. She forced her shoulders down. I'm breathing fine. Mommy Isabella is nervous, Lily announced, swinging between them, one small hand in each of theirs. Her presentation is today. She's going to show important people how to make the waterfront pretty again. Not just pretty, Isabella corrected automatically. Sustainable, accessible, a public space that serves the whole community, not just... She stopped, caught herself. Even now, even with a 9-year-old, she couldn't help slipping into pitch mode. Ethan squeezed her hand. You're going to be brilliant. You always are. It was such an Ethan thing to say. Supportive without being effusive. Steady, solid. These were the words Isabella used when friends asked about her husband. He's just steady, she'd say, and they'd nod like they understood, but she could see the faint disappointment in their eyes. Steady wasn't sexy. Steady wasn't the story you told at dinner parties. Isabella had made peace with that. Her first marriage, to Marcus, another architect, all flash and ambition, had been exciting right up until it imploded spectacularly. Ethan was different. Ethan was safe. He worked from home, managing some kind of security consulting business that Isabella only vaguely understood. Something about risk assessment for corporate clients. He never talked about it much, and she'd never pressed. What mattered was that he was always there, for Lily's school pickups, for the parent-teacher conferences, for the quiet machinery of daily life that kept their world turning. Can we get croissants? Lily asked, pointing at the French bakery on the corner. Please, the chocolate ones? We already had breakfast, Ethan said. That was toast. Toast doesn't count. Toast absolutely counts. Does toast have chocolate in it? That's a philosophical question I'm not equipped to answer before 9 a.m. Isabella smiled despite her nerves. This was her life now. This gentle banter. This uncomplicated sweetness. After the chaos of Marcus, the affairs, the accusations, the lawyer bills that had nearly bankrupted her, she'd rebuilt herself carefully. Her company, her reputation, her heart. And she'd chosen carefully too. Ethan wasn't flashy, but he was present. He wasn't ambitious, but he was devoted. He'd never ask her to be smaller so he could feel bigger. They crossed at the intersection where 7th Avenue met Merchant Street. The morning rush was building, suits and briefcases, delivery trucks double-parked, a street musician tuning his guitar near the subway entrance. The city breathing itself awake. That's when Isabella noticed the delivery truck. It was a big one, 18-wheeler, backed up to the loading dock of a commercial building. Nothing unusual. Except the driver seemed agitated, gesturing wildly to someone Isabella couldn't see. The truck was at an odd angle, its rear wheels too close to the curb. She registered this the way you register background details in a familiar place, peripherally, without real attention. Then everything happened at once. The truck lurched forward, not smoothly, violently, as if the driver had lost control. The mechanical scream of gears grinding against each other cut through the morning sounds. The truck jackknifed, its trailer swinging wide across 2 lanes of traffic. Cars screeched, horns blared. A taxi swerved and clipped a parked sedan, airbags deploying with sounds like gunshots. The truck's cab mounted the curb, 30 feet ahead of them. Right in front of this cafe with outdoor seating, where a dozen people sat with their lattes and laptops, completely unaware. Time did that strange thing where it both compressed and expanded. Isabella saw it all in crystalline detail. The expressions changing on people's faces, fear blooming like flowers in fast forward. Saw a woman in yoga pants freeze with her phone halfway to her ear. Saw a businessman drop his briefcase, papers exploding into the air like startled birds. The truck's momentum carried it toward a steel light pole. The impact, when it came, was enormous. The pole bent, then snapped. The truck's cab crumpled. Glass burst outward in a glittering cascade. Someone screamed. Then everyone screamed. Smoke began pouring from the truck's engine, not thick yet, but growing. The chemical smell of burning oil and heated metal filled the air. Isabella's hand tightened reflexively on Lily's. Her first instinct, her only instinct, was to pull the child away, to shield her, to run. But Ethan had already moved. She didn't see him decide. There was no hesitation, no moment of deliberation. 1 second he was beside her holding Lily's other hand. The next, he was in motion. "Stay here." His voice cut through the chaos. Not loud, not panicked, but carrying a weight of command that made Isabella freeze in place. "Both of you, don't move." Then he was running, not the way people run in emergencies, all flailing limbs and adrenaline. He moved like water, smooth and purposeful, eating up the distance between them and the wreckage in seconds that felt impossible. Isabella watched, Lily's hand gripped in hers as Ethan reached the truck. The driver was slumped over the wheel, unconscious or worse. Ethan didn't try the door. He glanced at it, seemed to instantly assess that it was jammed, and instead grabbed the side mirror, using it to hoist himself up onto the running board. His movements were economical, practiced, like he'd done this before, many times before. The smoke was thickening. Someone shouted, "Fire!" and the crowd's panic ratcheted up another notch. Ethan broke the driver's window with his elbow, one sharp strike, efficient, and reached inside. Isabella couldn't see what he was doing, but she saw his shoulders shift, saw him brace his legs. A few seconds later, the driver's door opened from the inside. Ethan pulled the man out. He was twice Ethan's size, easily 250 pounds, but Ethan handled the dead weight like it was nothing, getting him into a fireman's carry and moving away from the truck in that same liquid, purposeful way. He laid the driver on the sidewalk, checked his pulse, tilted his head back to open the airway. Every movement precise. Medical, professional. Who is this person? The thought flashed through Isabella's mind, sudden and disorienting. Who the hell is this person? But there was no time to process it, because that's when the man with the gun appeared. He came stumbling out from behind the truck's trailer, a guy in his 20s, thin, wild-eyed, with the jerky movements of someone running on pure panic and possibly drugs. He was clutching something metallic. Isabella's brain needed a second to process what she was seeing. A gun. He had a gun. "Stay back," the man shouted, waving the weapon at the crowd. His voice cracked on the words. "All of you, stay the fuck back." People scattered. The yoga pants woman threw herself behind a planter. The businessman dove through the cafe door. Screams turned to shrieks. Isabella's whole body went cold. Her hand clamped down on Lily's so hard the girl gasped. "Ethan," Isabella whispered. But he was 30 feet away, kneeling beside the unconscious truck driver, directly in the armed man's line of sight. Ethan rose slowly. His hands came up, palms out, empty, unthreatening. But something about his posture had changed. The gentleness was gone. What remained was something else, something that made the air around him seem to sharpen. "Hey." Ethan's voice was calm, almost conversational. "Hey man, you're okay. Nobody's going to hurt you." "Shut up." The gunman swung the weapon toward Ethan. I said, shut up. I hear you. Ethan took a step forward, not aggressive, almost casual. I hear you. What's your name? Don't come closer. I won't. But Ethan took another step anyway, somehow making it seem like he wasn't moving at all, like the distance was just closing naturally. Is this your truck? No, I don't. The man's face crumpled. I don't know what happened. I don't know. The brakes, I couldn't. That must have been terrifying. It was. The gun wavered. I tried to stop. I swear I tried, but I believe you. Another step. Ethan was maybe 15 feet away now, still in the danger zone, still close enough that if the gun went off, Isabella couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Beside her, Lily had gone absolutely still, the way children do when their instincts tell them that movement equals danger. The driver, the gunman said, his voice hitching. Did I kill him? He's breathing, Ethan said. You didn't kill anyone. But the police are coming, and when they get here, I need you to have put that gun down. Can you do that for me? I didn't mean... Tears were streaming down the man's face now. I swear I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I know. Ethan was 10 feet away, close enough that Isabella could see his expression now. It was gentle again, impossibly gentle, given that he was walking toward a loaded weapon. I know you didn't. That's why you're going to put the gun down. That's why this is going to be okay. They'll arrest me. Probably, Ethan agreed. But if you put the gun down right now before they get here, that's going to matter. That's going to show them you're not trying to hurt anyone. Can you do that? The man's hand was shaking so badly the gun rattled. I'm scared. Me too, Ethan lied. Because Isabella could see now that he wasn't scared at all. His breathing was even. His hands were steady. Whatever he was feeling, fear wasn't part of it. Put it down, Ethan said softly. Right there on the ground. Nice and easy, and then we're going to wait together until help arrives. Yeah? For a moment, Isabella thought it wasn't going to work. The man's finger was on the trigger. His eyes were fever-bright and unfocused. One wrong word, one sudden movement, and the gun clattered to the pavement. The man's knees buckled. He dropped, hands covering his face, sobbing. Ethan kicked the weapon away in one smooth motion, then knelt beside the man, talking to him in that same low, calm voice. Isabella couldn't hear the words anymore over the sirens. 3 police cars screaming around the corner, ambulance right behind them. But she could see Ethan's face, could see the absolute control in every line of his body, and she realized she was looking at a stranger. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of flashing lights and official voices and Lily's death grip on Isabella's leg. Police swarmed the scene. EMTs loaded the truck driver onto a stretcher, conscious now, dazed but alive. The gunman was cuffed and led away, still crying. An officer approached Ethan and Isabella waited for the interrogation, the questions, the suspicion that usually followed this kind of chaos. Instead, the officer shook Ethan's hand. They spoke for maybe 2 minutes. The officer took notes, nodded seriously, then actually clapped Ethan on the shoulder before walking away. Like they were colleagues, like Ethan had done something routine instead of something insane. When Ethan finally made his way back to Isabella and Lily, his shirt was torn at the shoulder and there was a smear of blood on his forearm, the truck driver's probably, but his expression was calm, apologetic even. Sorry about that, he said, like he'd just stepped away to take a phone call. Lily launched herself at him. You were so cool. Did you see him, Mommy Isabella? He climbed right up on the truck like Spider-Man and... Lily! Isabella's voice came out sharper than she intended. Give us a second, okay? The girl pulled back confused. But go stand over there, by the bakery window, where I can see you. Lily's face crumpled, that particular expression kids get when adults stop making sense. But she obeyed, trudging 10 feet away and pressing her nose to the glass. Isabella turned to Ethan. What the hell was that? He blinked. What was what? Don't. She was shaking now, the adrenaline catching up with her. Don't do that. Don't play it off like it was nothing. You ran toward a burning truck. You talked down an armed man. The police treated you like you were one of them. Ethan glanced away, jaw tight. I just helped. Anyone would have... No. Isabella cut him off. No, Ethan. Anyone would not have. Anyone would have run. Anyone would have called 911 and kept their family safe. But you, she gestured helplessly at the scene behind him. You moved like you've done this before. You moved like... She didn't know how to finish the sentence. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the city was resuming its normal rhythms. The crowd dispersing, traffic being redirected, the everyday machinery of crisis management. When he finally looked at her, something in his eyes had changed. That wall he kept up, the one she'd always assumed was just natural reserve, had cracks in it now. Not here, he said quietly. Okay? I'll tell you everything, but not here. Not with Lily. Tonight, Isabella said. We're talking about this tonight. Okay? Don't. She caught his arm as he started to turn. Don't you dare try to dodge this. I'm not letting this go. Ethan looked down at her hand on his arm, then up at her face. Something passed between them, a recognition, maybe. An ending of some kind, or a beginning. I won't, he said. I promise. Isabella walked into the Riverside Development Commission meeting at 10:03 a.m., 3 minutes late, with her blouse buttoned wrong and her mind 1,000 miles from waterfront renewal. Her assistant, Marcy, shot her a concerned look. Are you okay? We heard there was an incident on 7th. I'm fine. Let's begin. She moved through the presentation on autopilot. Her body stood at the front of the conference room, clicking through slides about green spaces and pedestrian access and sustainable materials. Her mouth formed words about community engagement and environmental impact studies, but her mind kept replaying the moment Ethan walked toward that gun, the utter calm in his face, the practiced efficiency of his movements, the way the police officer had deferred to him, as if Ethan's authority in that situation was simply assumed. Who are you? She thought, staring at a slide about native plant species without really seeing it. Who the hell are you? Ms. Kane. One of the board members, Fitzgerald, the former city councilman who'd been skeptical of the project from day one, was frowning at her. I asked about your contingency budget for the sculpture installations. Isabella blinked, pulled herself back. Yes, sorry. Page 17 of the supplemental materials covers... She made it through. Barely. When the board members filed out 90 minutes later, she had no idea if the pitch had gone well or poorly. Marcy was saying something encouraging, but Isabella wasn't listening. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Picked Lily up early from school, told her we're having a special family dinner tonight. Chinese takeout, she requested. Isabella stared at the message. Even now, in the middle of whatever earthquake was happening to their marriage, Ethan was thinking about Lily's favorite food. She typed back, Fine. We talk after she goes to bed. His response came immediately. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry for what? Isabella wanted to ask. Sorry for lying? Sorry for being someone else this whole time? Sorry for making me question everything I thought I knew? But Lily would see the message thread eventually. She was always grabbing Isabella's phone to show her YouTube videos or game scores, so Isabella just put the phone away and tried to focus on the afternoon's work. She failed completely. That evening, their apartment felt different, like a stage set that had always been convincing until suddenly you noticed the walls were made of painted canvas. Lily chattered through dinner about her day. Someone named Madison had fallen off the monkey bars at recess. Her teacher had announced a field trip to the Science Museum. She'd finished her book report early, and could she please watch extra TV? Ethan engaged fully, asking questions, laughing at her jokes. Being dad. Isabella watched him over her sesame chicken. This man who'd made Lily's lunch this morning, who'd reminded her to pack her library books, who'd probably already done tomorrow's laundry because Thursday was laundry day in their household. This man who'd climbed onto a burning truck without hesitation, who'd talked down a gunman like it was nothing. Mommy, Isabella, you're not eating. Lily pointed at Isabella's barely touched plate. Are you sick? Just thinking about work, sweetheart. Did they like your presentation? I think so. You think so? Don't you know? Ethan caught Isabella's eye across the table, a question in his gaze. She shook her head fractionally. Later. After dinner, Ethan did the dishes while Isabella supervised Lily's bath time. The girl wanted to talk about the incident. Tell me again how Daddy pulled the man out of the truck. but Isabella deflected, steering the conversation to the upcoming science museum trip instead. By 8:30, Lily was in bed, her nightlight casting star patterns across the ceiling. "Story," she demanded, holding up her current favorite book, some fantasy thing about a girl who discovered she had magic powers. "Not tonight, Lil," Ethan said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "You can read on your own for a while before lights out." "But we need to talk about grown-up stuff," Isabella added. "Boring work things." Lily's face fell, but she knew better than to argue when both parents presented a unified front. "Fine, but you have to tell me a story tomorrow, a real one, with voices." "Deal," Ethan said. He bent to kiss her forehead. Isabella did the same. They turned off the overhead light and closed the door to a crack, leaving just enough space for the hallway light to leak through. Then they walked to the living room. Their apartment was on the 7th floor of a converted warehouse building in the Arts District. Exposed brick, high ceilings, big windows that looked out over the city's glittering sprawl. Isabella had chosen it specifically for those windows. She loved watching the city transform from day to night, all those individual lights making a kind of constellation. Tonight, the view felt accusatory, like the whole city was watching, waiting. Ethan sat on the couch. Isabella remained standing. "So," she said. "So," he echoed. "Are you going to tell me? Or am I going to have to pull it out of you piece by piece?" Ethan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He stared at them for a long moment. When he looked up, his expression was weary, like he'd been carrying something heavy for a very long time. "I was in the military," he said quietly. "Special operations, 12 years. Isabella's stomach dropped. "Special operations?" "Yes." "Like Navy SEALs, Green Beret?" "Something like that." He paused. "I can't tell you exactly which unit. Some of it's still classified." Classified. The word hung in the air between them. "You told me you did security consulting," Isabella said slowly. "When we met, you said you worked for corporate clients, assessing risks. That's not a lie. I do that now, since I got out 4 years ago." 4 years. Isabella's mind raced, doing the math. "So you were still active duty when we met?" "No, I'd already separated by then. But yes, I hadn't been out long." "And you didn't think to mention this? In 3 years, you never thought to mention that you were some kind of elite soldier?" Ethan flinched at the word soldier. "I didn't want it to define me. I wanted—" He stopped, started again. "When Sarah died," Sarah, his first wife, Lily's mother. She died of cancer when Lily was 3. That much Isabella knew. That much had always been true. "When Sarah died," Ethan continued, "I was deployed. I was on the other side of the world, doing things I can't talk about, and she was in a hospital bed dying. I made it back 3 days before the end. 3 days." His voice didn't crack, but something in it broke anyway. "I couldn't do it anymore," he said. "Couldn't be that person. Couldn't miss Lily's life the way I'd missed Sarah's death. So I got out, came home, started over. And when I met you," he looked up at her, "you saw me the way I wanted to be seen. Not as a weapon, as a father, as a man who could be normal." "Normal," Isabella repeated numbly. "I know that sounds condescending, manipulative, like you've been lying to me for 3 years. I never lied to you." "Omission is a lie, Ethan." Her voice rose despite herself. She glanced at Lily's door, still closed, and forced herself quieter. "You let me believe you were someone you're not. I am who you think I am." There was urgency in his voice now. "Everything you know about me is real. I love Lily. I love you. I do the grocery shopping and the school pickups and the dishes because that's the life I chose. That's the man I am." "Then who was that person this morning?" Isabella demanded. "Who was that man who walked toward a gun like it was nothing? Because that sure as hell wasn't the guy who alphabetizes the spice rack." Ethan's jaw tightened. That was muscle memory. Training. It doesn't mean, it means everything. Isabella pressed her palms to her eyes. "Jesus Christ, Ethan. I divorced Marcus because he kept secrets, because he was someone different when I wasn't looking. And now I'm not Marcus. How do I know that? How do I know anything about you?" The question seemed to hit him physically. He sat back, something defeated in the movement. They were both quiet for a long moment. Outside, a siren wailed past. The same sound that had split this morning open. The sound that had changed everything. "What did you do?" Isabella asked finally. "In special operations. What did you actually do?" Ethan met her eyes. "I can't tell you that." "Can't or won't?" "Both." "Convenient." "Isabella, were you—" She swallowed hard. "Did you kill people?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "It wasn't murder," Ethan said quietly. "It was war, sanctioned, necessary. People who would have killed others if we hadn't—" He stopped. "I'm not asking you to understand. I'm not asking you to approve. I'm just asking you to believe me when I say that I left that life behind, completely. The only reason any of it came up today was because you couldn't help yourself," Isabella finished. "Because when it mattered, that's who you really are." "No." Ethan stood now, and there was something in his posture, that same sharpness she'd seen this morning, that edge of command. "When it mattered, I kept people safe, including our daughter. That truck was on fire, Isabella. That man had a loaded gun. If I'd hesitated, if I'd waited for someone else to handle it, someone else should have handled it," Isabella's control snapped. "The police should have handled it. You're not a soldier anymore. You're a father, and you had no business putting yourself in danger like that with Lily watching. Would you rather I'd let that driver burn? I'd rather you'd kept your family safe. I did keep you safe. I told you to stay back. You were never in danger. We were 30 feet away from a man with a gun. How is that safe?" They stared at each other, both breathing hard. The argument had escalated faster than either of them expected, old wounds opening beneath the new ones. Isabella turned away first, walked to the window. The city glittered back at her, indifferent to her pain. "I need time," she said to the glass. "I need to think about this." "Okay. I'm not—" She wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm not saying we're over. I'm just saying I don't know who I'm married to right now." "You're married to me," Ethan said softly. "Same person who burned pancakes this morning, trying to make Lily's favorite breakfast. Same person who can't watch romantic comedies without crying. Same person who loves you so much it scares me sometimes." Isabella's eyes burned. She wanted to believe him, wanted to turn around and fall into his arms and let this be simple, but nothing was simple anymore. "The guest room," she said. "Tonight, I need space." She heard him exhale. "Okay. And tomorrow we're going to talk more. Real talk. No deflections. No classified bullshit. If we're going to get through this, I need to know who you are. All of it. All right?" She listened to his footsteps cross the room, pause at the doorway. "Isabella?" She didn't turn. "Yeah? I'm sorry for how you found out, for not telling you before. I'm sorry." The words should have helped. They didn't. She listened to him walk away, down the hall to the guest room, heard the door close with a soft click. Then she stood at the window for a long time, watching the city breathe, trying to understand how her life had fractured so completely in less than 12 hours, and wondering if the man in the guest room was a stranger she'd married or a stranger she'd created by refusing to ask the right questions. Either way, the morning had split them open. Now they had to figure out if they could stitch themselves back together, or if some cracks were too deep to repair. Isabella didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of her apartment that suddenly felt foreign. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of traffic, the creak of floorboards from the guest room where her husband was sleeping alone for the first time since their wedding night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan climbing that truck, saw the absolute certainty in his movements, saw a version of him that her mind couldn't reconcile with the man who'd spent last Sunday afternoon teaching Lily how to braid friendship bracelets. At 3:17 a.m., she gave up, pulled on her robe and padded quietly to the kitchen, careful not to wake Lily. She made coffee even though she knew the caffeine would make her jittery. She needed something to do with her hands. The kitchen was Ethan's domain. He'd organized everything with military precision. She saw that now, the word military suddenly clicking into place over observations she'd dismissed as quirks. The labels on the storage containers, The way the knives were arranged by size and function. The emergency supplies in the bottom drawer, rotated and checked monthly. How had she not seen it? How had she looked at this man every day and missed something so fundamental? She was sitting at the kitchen table, coffee cooling untouched in front of her, when Ethan appeared in the doorway. He wore the same wrinkled t-shirt and sweatpants from yesterday, his hair stuck up on one side. He looked tired in a way that went deeper than one sleepless night. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey. Couldn't sleep either?" Isabella shook her head. They sat in silence for a moment, the pre-dawn darkness pressing against the windows. "I made a list," Ethan said finally. He held up his phone. "Of people from before. People you could call. People who could tell you about me. If that would help." Isabella looked at the phone but didn't reach for it. "You want me to fact-check you? I want you to have answers. Whatever you need to feel safe again." Safe. The word lodged in her chest. "I don't think safety is the issue." "Then what is?" She wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. "I keep thinking about our wedding vows. The whole, for better or worse, in sickness and health thing. And I meant it. I really did. But there was this assumption underneath it all that I knew who I was making those promises to. That the foundation was solid. It is solid. Is it?" She met his eyes. "Because right now it feels like I married a character, a performance. The gentle single dad who needed someone to help him raise his daughter. Was any of that real, or was I just convenient?" Ethan flinched like she'd slapped him. "You think I married you as a cover story?" "I don't know what to think. I married you because you made me laugh." His voice went rough. "Because you talked about buildings like they were living things. Because the first time Lily called you Mommy Isabella, you cried and pretended you weren't crying, and I fell in love with you so hard I couldn't breathe." Isabella's eyes burned. She looked away. "I didn't tell you about my past because I was ashamed of it," Ethan continued. "Not because I was proud of it. Those 12 years, they took pieces of me I'm never getting back. They made me good at things no one should be good at. And when I got out, when I had the chance to be someone else, someone clean, I took it. Maybe that was selfish. Maybe I should have been honest from the start. But I wanted you to see me, Isabella, not my service record." "I can't separate the two," she whispered. "Not anymore." The silence that followed felt like something breaking. Then Lily's door opened. Small footsteps patted down the hallway. The girl appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her braids frizzy and askew. "Why is everybody awake?" she asked, confused. "It's still dark." Ethan was up instantly, switching gears so smoothly it was almost frightening. "Bad dreams, Bug. We're just having some warm milk to help us sleep again. Want some?" Lily climbed into his lap without hesitation. He wrapped his arms around her, and Isabella watched her stepdaughter melt into that embrace with total trust. That was real. Whatever else was true or false or complicated, Ethan's love for his daughter was completely genuine. "I had a bad dream too," Lily announced. "There was a monster in my closet, but it was also a dragon, and it wanted to eat my stuffed animals." "That's terrifying," Ethan said seriously. "Did you fight it off?" "I tried to, but then I woke up." She twisted to look at Isabella. "Are you sad, Mommy Isabella? You look sad." Isabella forced a smile. "Just tired, sweetheart. Is it because of work? Did those people not like your waterfront thing?" "It's complicated. Grown-up complicated or math complicated?" Despite everything, Isabella almost smiled. "Grown-up complicated." "That's the worst kind." Lily yawned hugely. "Can I sleep with you guys tonight? I don't want the dragon to come back." Isabella and Ethan's eyes met over the girl's head. A whole conversation happened in that glance. Lily couldn't sleep in their bed tonight. Not with Ethan in the guest room. Not with everything broken between them. "How about you sleep with Daddy in the guest room?" Isabella heard herself say. "He's got the bigger bed in there tonight." Lily perked up. "Like a sleepover?" "Exactly like that." "Okay." She scrambled out of Ethan's lap and grabbed his hand. "Come on, Daddy. Bring your pillow. We can tell stories until we fall asleep." Ethan stood slowly. He looked at Isabella with something that might have been gratitude or might have been grief. "Get some rest," he told her. "We'll talk more in the morning." But morning came with its own complications. Isabella woke to her phone ringing at 6:45 a.m. Marcy's name flashed on the screen. "Please tell me you've seen the news," her assistant said without preamble. Isabella's stomach dropped. "What news?" "Check the Morning Chronicle website, front page." "I'm so sorry, Isabella." She pulled up the site with shaking hands. The headline hit her like a fist. Local CEO's husband revealed as Elite Special Forces veteran after heroic rescue. Below it, a photograph. Ethan climbing onto the truck, his face caught in profile, absolutely focused. Beneath that, another photo. This one pulled from somewhere, some database, showing a younger Ethan in military dress uniform, his chest covered in medals Isabella didn't recognize. The article was thorough. Too thorough. It mentioned his unit designation, some combination of numbers and letters that meant nothing to Isabella. It quoted unnamed sources describing missions in countries she couldn't pronounce. It called him a hero. It also mentioned her company. Her Riverside Development Commission presentation scheduled for, she checked, 9 hours from now, in a final vote to approve the project. "This is going to turn into a circus," Marcy said on the phone. "The board members are already calling. Some of them think it's great publicity. Others are worried about, and I'm quoting Fitzgerald here, unnecessary controversy and distraction from the project's merits." Isabella pressed her palm to her forehead. How did this even get out? Someone at the scene yesterday must have recognized him, or maybe ran his face through some database. There are people who track this stuff. Veterans advocacy groups, military history forums. Once his name was out there, Marcy trailed off. The internet did the rest. Can we contain it? It's already everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, the local news stations are calling for interviews. Someone created a hashtag. Hashtag Hero of 7th is trending. Of course it was. Because this was Isabella's life now. Her private earthquake had gone public. She hung up with Marcy and sat on the edge of her bed, staring at Ethan's photo on her phone screen. He looked so young in the military picture. 25 maybe. His face harder, leaner, but the eyes were the same. That particular intensity she'd seen yesterday morning. She heard movement in the guest room. Lily's giggle. Ethan's low rumble in response. Isabella pulled on clothes and went to find them. They were in the kitchen. Ethan was making pancakes while Lily sat at the counter narrating some elaborate story about her stuffed dragon that had apparently been the good guy all along. The scene was so achingly normal that Isabella almost turned around and walked back out. But Ethan saw her. His spatula paused mid-flip. "Morning," he said carefully. "Have you seen the news?" His expression told her everything. "Yeah, I saw." "Since when?" "About 20 minutes ago. My phone started blowing up around 6. He glanced at Lily, then back to Isabella, lowered his voice. "We should talk about this. After we get Lily to school." "What's on the news?" Lily asked, swiveling on her stool. "Is it about the truck yesterday? Are we famous?" "Not famous," Ethan said quickly. "Just people are interested in what happened, that's all." "Can I tell Madison? She's going to think it's so cool." "Let's keep it quiet for now, Bug, okay?" Lily's face fell, but she nodded. She was good at reading adult tension, Isabella realized. Too good. How many deployments had she lived through before Ethan got out? How many times had she learned to be small and quiet when the grown-ups were stressed? Breakfast was strained. Isabella picked at her food, while Ethan kept up a steady stream of conversation with Lily, asking about her spelling test, her art project, her friend group drama. Being dad. Being exactly the father he'd always been. But now Isabella watched him differently. Noticed the way he positioned himself in the kitchen to keep both doors in his line of sight. The way he'd glanced out the window 3 times during the meal. Small things. Habitual things. Survival instincts wearing the mask of ordinary behavior. After breakfast, Isabella offered to walk Lily to school. Ethan looked surprised. Usually that was his job. But he didn't argue. The morning was crisp and golden, the city shaking off the previous day's chaos. Lily chattered the whole way about her upcoming science project, something involving volcanoes and baking soda. Isabella made appropriate listening noises while her mind spun through the implications of the news story. At the school gate, Lily hugged her tight. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" The question caught Isabella off guard. Why would you think that? You're being weird, both of you. Lily's eyes were too knowing for 9 years old. Is it because of yesterday? Because he was brave? No, sweetheart, it's not that. Then what? Isabella crouched down to Lily's level. Sometimes grown-ups have to work through complicated feelings. It doesn't mean we don't love each other. It just means we need to talk about some things, okay? But you're not getting divorced? The word hit Isabella like cold water. No, Lily, we're not getting divorced. Promise? Isabella hesitated. She'd learned not to make promises she couldn't keep. But looking at Lily's frightened face, she couldn't add more fear to this child's life. I promise we're going to do everything we can to work this out, she said carefully. Your dad and I both love you very much. That's never going to change. It wasn't quite the answer Lily wanted, but it seemed to be enough. She nodded, hitched her backpack higher, and ran off to join her friends on the playground. Isabella walked back to the apartment slowly, dreading the conversation waiting for her. Ethan was on the phone when she got back. He held up one finger, "Give me a minute," and turned away. I understand, sir. Yes. No, I'd prefer not to. With respect, I left for a reason. I know. Can I call you back? He hung up and rubbed his face with both hands. Who was that? Isabella asked. Former commanding officer. He wants me to do a press conference. Thinks it would be good for recruitment to have a positive veteran story in the news cycle. Ethan's voice was flat. I told him no. Are you going to call him back? Eventually, to tell him no again? Ethan poured himself coffee with hands that weren't quite steady. I've had 17 calls this morning, media requests, former teammates, a guy from the Veterans Affairs office asking if I want to speak at some event. It's like my entire past just vomited itself into the present. Isabella sat at the kitchen table. Is that what I am? Part of your past vomiting into your present? That's not what I meant. But it's true, isn't it? You built this whole new life, new identity, and now it's contaminated. Ethan set his coffee down and turned to face her fully. You're not contamination. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Then why does it feel like you're two different people? Because I am. The admission seemed to cost him something. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat. I've been trying to reconcile those two versions of myself for 4 years, the operator and the father. The man who could make impossible calls in impossible situations, and the man who panics when Lily gets a fever. I thought I could just choose one, be one. But yesterday proved that's not how it works. What do you mean? The training doesn't go away. The instincts don't shut off. When that truck crashed, I didn't think, I'm a father now, I should stay back. I thought tactical assessment, threat level, most efficient response. It was automatic. Muscle memory wired so deep I couldn't stop it if I tried. Isabella studied his face. The exhaustion there, the conflict. Do you want to stop it? The question seemed to surprise him. What? That part of you, the soldier. Do you actually want it gone? Or are you just trying to hide it because you think that's what I need? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. The honesty in those 4 words cracked something open in Isabella's chest. I spent 12 years being very good at a very specific thing, Ethan continued, and it cost me everything that mattered. My marriage to Sarah was barely surviving when she got sick. I was gone more than I was home, and when I was home, I was distant, closed off. She used to say it was like living with a ghost. His voice went rough. I swore I wouldn't do that to Lily, wouldn't be that man. So I buried it, all of it, and for 4 years it worked. Until yesterday. Until yesterday. He met her eyes. And now you're looking at me like I'm a stranger, and I can't blame you because part of me is a stranger, even to myself. Isabella reached across the table. Her hand stopped halfway, hovering in the space between them. She couldn't quite bridge the gap. I need to understand, she said, not just what you did, but who you were. Who you are. The real version, not the sanitized one you've been showing me. It's not pretty. I'm not asking for pretty, I'm asking for true. Ethan looked at her hand, still suspended in midair. Then he reached out and took it. His grip was warm and solid and completely familiar. Okay, he said. What do you want to know? Isabella took a breath. Everything. So he told her. They sat at that kitchen table for 2 hours while the morning light shifted across the floor. Ethan talked and Isabella listened, and slowly, painfully, a new picture emerged. He'd enlisted at 18, running from a childhood he didn't elaborate on. Found structure and purpose in the military, excelled, got recruited into special operations at 22. Married Sarah at 23, right before his first deployment. She was a teacher, Ethan said. Elementary school. She wanted 3 kids and a garden and Sunday dinners with extended family. Normal things, good things. And I kept promising her that's what we'd have. After this deployment, after the next one, after I got promoted and could request different assignments. He shook his head. I was lying to both of us. The missions were classified, but he painted enough of a picture. Hostage rescues, high-value target extractions, operations in countries where American soldiers officially didn't exist. He'd been shot twice, stabbed once, survived an IED that killed 2 of his teammates. You learn to compartmentalize, he said, to put the violence in a box and lock it away so you can come home and pretend to be normal. But the box leaks. Sarah knew. She could see it eating at me even when I thought I was hiding it. When she got sick, aggressive breast cancer, stage 4 by the time they caught it, Ethan had been in some desert he couldn't name, doing something he couldn't describe. His commander had pulled strings to get him emergency leave, but it took 3 days to extract him from wherever he was. I made it back 72 hours before she died, Ethan said. His voice had gone completely flat. She was on so much morphine she barely knew I was there. But Lily knew. Lily was 6 years old, and she knew her daddy had been gone when it mattered most. Isabella's throat was tight. That's not fair to yourself. Isn't it? I chose that life. Chose those missions. Chose to be somewhere else when my wife needed me. He pulled his hand back, wrapped both arms around himself. After Sarah's funeral, I put in my resignation papers. My CO tried to talk me out of it, said I was too good to walk away, that I was reacting emotionally. And he was right. I was reacting emotionally. Because for the first time in 12 years, I felt something besides tactical efficiency. The transition to civilian life had been brutal. He'd moved back to the city, gotten into security consulting through a former teammate's connections, started learning how to be a full-time father, started learning how to sleep without nightmares. Some nights I still can't, he admitted. The dreams. They're not as bad as they used to be, but they're there. Usually I just get up, check on Lily, do some work. By the time you wake up, I'm fine again. Isabella thought about all the mornings she'd found him already awake, coffee made, breakfast started. She thought he was just an early riser. Then I met you, Ethan continued, at that ridiculous fundraiser where the mayor got drunk and fell into the tomato plants. And you were this force of nature, arguing with the city planner about green space accessibility like it was a moral imperative. And I thought, he stopped, swallowed. I thought you saw me as a person, not a soldier, not a widower, just a guy trying to raise his kid and maybe grow some decent vegetables. I did see that, Isabella said quietly. I do see that. But it's not all I am. No. She met his eyes. It's not all you are. The admission hung between them, not quite acceptance, not quite reconciliation, but something, a starting point. Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and grimaced. That's my CO again. 4th time this morning. Are you going to answer? Not yet. He silenced the phone. There's something else you need to know. The reason this is blowing up so much, the reason people care, it's not just that I helped yesterday. It's because of what happened in Karajan. Where? Small country most people can't find on a map. 7 years ago, there was a hostage situation. 23 aid workers held by an extremist group in a compound. I was part of the team that got them out. His jaw tightened. Except we only got 22 out. One of them died during the extraction, caught in the crossfire. The media called it a heroic rescue. The intelligence community gave us commendations, but I killed a 26-year-old nurse from Ohio who'd been building water filtration systems in villages. Isabella's breath caught. That wasn't your fault. Whose fault was it then? The question came out sharp. I pulled the trigger. I made the call. The intel said the room was clear of hostages, but the intel was wrong, and I didn't double-check, and she died. You saved 22 people. I'm aware. His voice went cold. I'm very aware of the math, but her parents don't care about the math. They care that their daughter went to help people and came home in a flag-draped coffin, and every time someone calls me a hero, I think about her face. She looked surprised. That's what I remember most. Just surprised. Isabella didn't know what to say. What could anyone say to that? So when you ask who I am, Ethan continued, that's part of the answer. I'm someone who's very good at violence, who can make life or death decisions in seconds and live with the consequences. And I'm also someone who makes Lily's lunches and cries at animated movies and wants desperately to be normal. Both things are true. I don't know how to reconcile them, but they're both true. The silence that followed felt different than the earlier silences, heavier, fuller. Finally, Isabella spoke. When I married Marcus, I thought I knew exactly who he was. Ambitious architect, big personality, bigger dreams. Turned out I didn't know him at all. He was having an affair with a client, embezzling from our joint projects, being someone completely different when I wasn't looking. I know. She cut him off gently. I know you're not Marcus, but I think I've been so afraid of being blindsided again that I convinced myself you were simple, safe. Just the gentle dad who needed me. And that wasn't fair to you either. Ethan blinked. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we both made the same mistake. You assumed I couldn't handle the complicated version of you. I assumed there wasn't a complicated version to handle. And we both built a marriage on those assumptions. So where does that leave us? Isabella looked at her husband, this man who was somehow both familiar and foreign, both exactly who she'd thought and nothing like she'd imagined. I don't know, she admitted, but I think we need to start from here, from honest, even if honest is messy and hard and nothing like the life we thought we were building. I can do honest, Ethan said quietly. If you can. I can try. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't resolution, but it was something. Isabella glanced at the clock. 8:47 a.m. In just over 12 hours, she'd be standing in front of the Development Commission again, this time for the final vote on her project. And now half the board would be distracted by her husband's sudden celebrity status. I need to go to the office, she said, standing. Do damage control before the vote tonight. Do you want me to come? To the vote? She considered. Part of her wanted him there, the steady presence she'd always relied on. But another part wasn't sure if she could handle watching the board members stare at him, wondering which version they were seeing. I don't know, she said honestly. Can I decide later? Of course. She collected her bag, her phone, her laptop, paused at the door. Ethan? He looked up from his coffee. Thank you, she said, for telling me. Finally. Something in his expression eased. Not happiness, exactly, but relief. Thank you for listening. Isabella walked out into the morning, her mind already spinning through the day ahead. Phone calls to make. Board members to reassure. A presentation to defend. But underneath the professional calculations, something else was happening. A recalibration. A slow, painful process of deconstructing the man she'd thought she married and trying to understand the one she'd actually bound herself to. The city gleamed around her, indifferent as always to private upheavals. She pulled out her phone and called Marcy. How bad is it? She asked without preamble. 3 board members called it inspiring. 2 called it concerning. Fitzgerald called it a calculated publicity stunt. Marcy sighed. The vote tonight could go either way. The project's strong enough to stand on its own merits, but perception matters. And right now the perception is complicated. Complicated, that word again. Set up individual calls with the fence-sitters, Isabella said, her professional instincts kicking in. I'll address concerns one-on-one, and prepare talking points about keeping the focus on the project, not my personal life. Already done. First call is in 20 minutes. Good, I'll be there in 10. She hung up and hailed a cab, sliding into the back seat as the driver pulled into traffic. Through the window, the city scrolled past. The same street she'd walked yesterday morning when her biggest worry was a pitch meeting. Everything had changed so fast. But maybe, Isabella thought, as they turned onto 7th Avenue, past the cleanup crews still working on yesterday's accident scene, maybe some things had needed to change. Maybe the foundation she'd thought was solid had actually been built on carefully maintained silence, on two people protecting each other from truths they were both afraid to speak. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Whatever you decide about tonight, I support you, and I'm proud of you. Always." Isabella stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, "Come to the vote. I want you there." His response was immediate. "Okay, one word." But it carried weight. The cab pulled up to her office building. Isabella paid, stepped out onto the sidewalk, and looked up at the glass facade reflecting the morning sky. Time to face the consequences of yesterday. Time to defend the work she'd built while her personal life fractured around her. Time to figure out if she could hold both things at once, the professional and the personal, the known and the newly discovered. Time to be honest. Messy, complicated, terrifying honest. She squared her shoulders and walked through the doors. The office was a storm when Isabella arrived. Marcy intercepted her at the elevator, tablet in hand, expression somewhere between panic and determination. Fitzgerald called again. "He wants a meeting before the vote. Private. Just you and him." Isabella's stomach tightened. Fitzgerald was the kingmaker on the Development Commission, retired city councilman with enough political capital to sway the other fence-sitters. If he voted no, her project was dead. "When?" "Noon. His office." But Marcy handed her the tablet. "Also, you have 12 media requests, 6 calls from board members, and 1 very persistent reporter from the Chronicle who somehow got my personal cell." Isabella scrolled through the messages. Most were variations on the same theme. Questions about Ethan, requests for interviews, thinly veiled attempts to turn her professional achievement into a human interest story about the CEO and the war hero. "I'm not commenting on my personal life," Isabella said firmly. "Not to anyone. Our official statement is that my husband's actions yesterday were admirable, and we're grateful everyone is safe, but our focus remains on the Riverside Development Project and its merits." "I already sent that out an hour ago." Marcy fell into step beside her as they headed toward Isabella's office. "Most outlets are respecting it, but the internet doesn't respect anything. There are already forum posts analyzing your wedding photos, speculation about whether you knew about his background. Someone even dug up your divorce records from Marcus and is implying you have a type." Isabella's jaw clenched. A type. Strong, secretive men. Their words, not mine. Marcy's voice was carefully neutral. "I'm working on getting the more invasive content taken down, but it's like playing whack-a-mole." They reached Isabella's office, corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the waterfront that would, if tonight went well, become her legacy project. The view usually calmed her. Today it just reminded her of how much she had to lose. "The calls with the board members," Isabella said, dropping her bag and immediately pulling up her presentation files. "Walk me through who's solid and who's wavering." For the next 3 hours, Isabella worked. She called board members and listened to their concerns. She refined her talking points. She reviewed every slide, every statistic, every rendering of what the waterfront could become. She buried herself in the work because work was solid. Work made sense. Work didn't look at her with Ethan's eyes and ask her to reconcile the irreconcilable. At 11:47, she left for Fitzgerald's office. The man had been a fixture in city politics for 30 years before retiring. His downtown office was all dark wood and leather, portraits of himself with various mayors and governors covering the walls. He rose when Isabella entered, gesture more perfunctory than welcoming. "Ms. Kane, thank you for coming." "Of course." Isabella shook his hand, noting the coolness of his grip. She'd dealt with Fitzgerald before. He was old school, skeptical of women in leadership, even more skeptical of anything that deviated from traditional development models. But he was also pragmatic. She'd won him over once with her Riverside proposal. She could do it again. "Sit." He gestured to the chair across from his massive desk. "Coffee?" "No, thank you." He poured himself a cup anyway, taking his time with the cream and sugar. Power play. Making her wait. Finally, he sat. "I'm going to be direct with you, Ms. Kane. This situation with your husband is a problem." Isabella kept her expression neutral. "My personal life has no bearing on the quality of my work or the viability of the Riverside project. Doesn't it?" Fitzgerald leaned back, fingers steepled. "See, here's my concern. We're entrusting you with $60 million of public and private funding. We're betting that you can deliver a project that will serve this community for decades. And I need to know that you have the focus and stability to see it through. I've spent 18 months proving exactly that. Before yesterday, yes. Before we discovered your husband is some kind of highly trained operative with a classified background that apparently includes international incidents and dead civilians. The words landed like blows. Isabella forced herself not to react. Before yesterday, Fitzgerald continued, you were a talented architect with a strong proposal. Today, you're a media spectacle. Do you understand the difference? What I understand, Isabella said, keeping her voice level, is that my husband's past service has no connection to my professional capabilities. What I understand is that this project will create jobs, green space, and accessible public areas for thousands of residents. What I understand is that we're either voting on the merits of the proposal or we're voting on tabloid gossip. It's not gossip when it's front-page news. It's a distraction from what actually matters. Fitzgerald studied her for a long moment. Tell me something, Ms. Kane. Did you know? About your husband's background. The question caught her off guard. She could lie. Could say of course she knew, that they had no secrets, but something in Fitzgerald's expression told her he'd see through it. I knew he served, she said carefully. I didn't know the extent of it until yesterday. So he lied to you. He omitted details. There's a difference. Is there? Fitzgerald took a sip of coffee. Because from where I'm sitting, if you couldn't see what was right in front of you at home, how can we trust your judgment on a project this significant? The accusation hit harder than Isabella expected. Because wasn't that exactly what she'd been asking herself? How had she missed something so fundamental about the man she married? But she couldn't afford to show weakness. Not here. Not now. Mr. Fitzgerald, she said, leaning forward, my marriage is complicated. My work is not. I have delivered every project I've committed to, on time and on budget, for the past 8 years. I have transformed 3 public spaces in this city from neglected lots into community assets. The Riverside Development Project represents the culmination of years of research, community input, and environmental planning. And it will work because the design is sound, the funding is secure, and I am very good at what I do. Even when your personal life is falling apart? Isabella met his eyes. Especially then. Because this project isn't about me. It's about the community, and that's never going to change, regardless of what's happening in the news cycle. Fitzgerald was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, thin, evaluating. That's a good answer. It's an honest answer. Even better. He set down his coffee cup. I'm still voting yes tonight, Ms. Kane. I was always planning to. Your proposal is too strong to reject based on personal drama, but I needed to know if you could handle the pressure, if you could separate the professional from the personal when it mattered. Relief flooded through Isabella, quickly followed by anger. This was a test? Everything's a test. Fitzgerald stood, signaling the meeting was over. Politics, business, marriage. The question is whether you pass or fold. You passed. Don't make me regret it. Isabella rose, gathering what remained of her dignity. You won't. Good. See you at the vote. She left his office feeling like she'd been put through a ringer. The relief of his support couldn't quite overcome the humiliation of being interrogated about her marriage like it was a liability to manage. Her phone buzzed as she stepped outside. Ethan. The text read, picking up Lily from school. She wants to know if we can all have dinner together before your vote. I told her I'd ask. Isabella stared at the message. Family dinner. Like they were normal. Like yesterday hadn't happened and this morning's confessions hadn't cracked open everything they'd built. But Lily didn't know about the cracks. Lily just wanted her parents together. Isabella typed back, yes. But just us. No phones, no news, no outside world. Deal. She had 4 hours until the vote. 4 hours to prepare for the most important presentation of her career while her personal life disintegrated in real time. She went back to the office and worked. At 5:30, she headed home. The apartment smelled like tomato sauce and garlic, Ethan's spaghetti, Lily's favorite. Isabella could hear them in the kitchen, Lily chattering about her day while Ethan asked questions and presumably cooked. She stood in the doorway watching them for a moment, father and daughter. the ease between them, the uncomplicated love. This was what Ethan had fought for, what he'd left his entire career to protect. "Mommy, Isabella!" Lily spotted her and ran over, throwing her arms around Isabella's waist. "Daddy's making the good spaghetti with the meatballs that are actually good, not like the cafeteria ones that taste like sad." Despite everything, Isabella smiled. "Sad meatballs, the worst kind." "Come look at my art project." We had to draw our families, and I drew you and Daddy and me, and I put us in front of our building, but I made it purple because our building should be purple. Lily dragged her to the living room where a poster board displayed a childish but earnest rendering of 3 stick figures, one tall with dark hair, one shorter with yellow hair, one tiny with brown braids, standing in front of a very purple building. "It's beautiful," Isabella said, and meant it. "Mrs. Patterson said we have to present them tomorrow and explain why our families are special." Lily looked up at her, gap-toothed grin wide. "I'm going to say mine is special because my daddy can climb trucks and my mommy makes the city pretty." Isabella's throat tightened. "That's perfect, sweetheart." They ate dinner at the kitchen table. Ethan had set out candles, probably trying to make it feel occasion, trying to patch over the strain with atmosphere. It almost worked. Lily dominated the conversation, talking about her friend Madison's birthday party planning and some complex drama involving who was sitting with whom at lunch. Normal kid problems. Normal kid joy. Isabella caught Ethan's eye across the table and saw the same thought reflected there. They were doing this for her, holding it together for Lily. It wasn't dishonest, it was protective. Letting a 9-year-old have one more dinner where her world felt stable. After dinner, Lily wanted to play a board game. They made it through 2 rounds of something involving dragons and treasure before Isabella had to excuse herself to get ready. She stood in their bedroom, though Ethan had slept in the guest room last night, and stared at her closet. The blue suit was her power outfit. The gray was more conservative. The black felt too severe. She chose the blue. If she was going down, she'd go down swinging. "You look beautiful." Isabella turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, expression careful. "Thank you." Nervous? Terrified. He stepped into the room, and Isabella tensed despite herself. He noticed, stopped, maintained the distance between them. "You're going to be brilliant," he said quietly. "Just like Fitzgerald's meeting. You'll make them remember what matters." "How did you—" "I didn't tell you about Fitzgerald." "Marcy texted me. Asked if I could make sure you ate something before the vote." A ghost of a smile. "She's protective of you. She's protective of the project." "It's the same thing." Isabella finished with her makeup, buying time before she had to look at him. "Are you still coming to the vote?" "Do you want me to?" "I don't know." She turned to face him. "Part of me wants you there. Part of me thinks your presence will make everything more complicated. Part of me doesn't know what I want anymore." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then I'll make it simple. I'll come. I'll sit in the back. If at any point you want me to leave, just look at me. That's it. Just look at me, and I'll go. That's not fair to you. This isn't about fair, it's about supporting you." He pulled car keys from his pocket. "Lily's staying with Mrs. Chen downstairs. I already arranged it. We should leave in 10 minutes if we want to get there early." He left before Isabella could respond. She stared at herself in the mirror. Professional, polished, completely in control on the outside while everything inside churned. She could do this. She'd done harder things. She'd rebuilt her entire career after Marcus. She'd learned to be a stepmother to a grieving 6-year-old. She'd pitched this project to dozens of skeptics and won them over. She could do this. The Riverside Development Commission met in the old courthouse building downtown. The main chamber was all marble and dark wood, built in an era when civic architecture was meant to inspire awe. Tonight, it just felt intimidating. Isabella arrived 15 minutes early. Marcy was already there, along with 2 junior architects from the firm who'd worked on the renderings. They huddled near the front, doing last-minute tech checks. The public seating area began filling up. Community members who'd attended the input sessions, local business owners, a few reporters, despite the commission's general ban on press during deliberations. And Ethan. True to his word, he sat in the very back row, almost invisible unless you knew to look for him. Their eyes met across the room. He nodded once. Steady. Present. Isabella turned back to her notes. At exactly 7 o'clock, the commission members filed in. 9 people who would determine whether her 18 months of work became reality or ended up in the city's archives of rejected proposals. Commission Chair Reza Ahmadi called the meeting to order. They worked through preliminary business, minutes from the last meeting, budget updates, a minor zoning variance. Then Ahmadi turned to Isabella. Ms. Kane, the Riverside Development Project. You have the floor. Isabella stood, clicked to her first slide, and began. She'd given this presentation so many times she could do it in her sleep. But tonight, she made it better. She spoke from the heart about what public space meant, about accessibility and community and creating places where people could gather without having to spend money, about environmental responsibility and native plants and stormwater management systems that would actually improve the river's health. She showed renderings of families picnicking in the green spaces, kids playing in the splash pad, elderly residents resting on benches designed for actual comfort, not just to prevent homeless people from sleeping. She talked about the economics, construction jobs, ongoing maintenance positions, increased property values for surrounding neighborhoods without displacing current residents. She addressed every concern that had been raised in the previous meetings, every question about cost or timeline or feasibility. 40 minutes. She spoke for 40 minutes and barely consulted her notes. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then Ahmadi spoke. Thank you, Ms. Kane. That was comprehensive. Commission members, questions? The questions came. Most were softballs, clarifications on details, confirmations of funding sources. Then Fitzgerald spoke up. Ms. Kane, I have a concern about continuity. This project has a 10-year timeline from groundbreaking to full completion. Can you guarantee you'll see it through? Here it was. The personal made professional. Isabella met his eyes. Mr. Fitzgerald, I can guarantee that this project will be completed on schedule and on budget because it's contracted through my firm, not just through me personally. That said, yes, I will see it through. This project is my legacy. It's the work I want to be remembered for. Nothing will distract me from that. Fitzgerald nodded, satisfied. He'd gotten what he wanted. Her commitment on the record. A few more questions. Then Ahmadi called for a vote. All in favor of approving the Riverside Development Project as presented? Hands went up. Isabella counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 was the majority they needed, but then a 6th hand rose, and a 7th, 7 out of 9. The project is approved, Ahmadi announced. Congratulations, Ms. Kane. We look forward to seeing this vision become reality. The room erupted in polite applause. Isabella stood there, stunned. She'd done it. Despite everything, despite the chaos of the last 36 hours, she'd actually done it. Marcy was hugging her. The junior architects were shaking her hand. Commission members were coming down to offer congratulations. Through it all, Isabella searched the back of the room. Ethan was gone. The realization hit her with unexpected force. He'd left. Slipped out during the vote, probably, not wanting to become the story, protecting her even in his absence. Or maybe he just couldn't stand to be there, couldn't watch her succeed while their marriage fractured. Isabella moved through the next hour on autopilot, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, discussing next steps with Ahmadi, setting up meetings to finalize contracts. Finally, mercifully, she was able to leave. Outside, the night was cool and clear. The city glittered around her, indifferent to her victory. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. I'm at home with Lily if you want to celebrate with us. Or I can take her to Mrs. Chen's if you need space. Isabella stared at the message. Celebrate. Like they were a normal family. Like she hadn't spent the last 2 days questioning everything she thought she knew about her husband. But she'd won. She'd actually won. And suddenly she wanted nothing more than to go home and share it with the people who mattered most. She typed back, coming home now. The apartment was quiet when she arrived. Lily was in bed. It was past 9, well past her bedtime. Ethan sat on the couch in the living room, laptop open, probably working. He looked up when she entered. Hey. He closed the laptop. How does it feel? Surreal, Isabella admitted. She dropped her bag, kicked off her heels. 7 votes. 7. I was expecting 5, maybe 6, if we were lucky. They'd have been idiots to vote no. Fitzgerald tested me before the vote, called me in for a private meeting, and basically interrogated me about whether my personal life would interfere with the project. Ethan's expression hardened. It's politics, Isabella cut him off. It's the game. And I played it and won. She sat down on the opposite end of the couch, close but not touching. Why did you leave? You asked me to. When you looked at me during the questions, I saw it. You needed me gone. I didn't look at you. Yes, you did. Right before Fitzgerald asked about continuity, you glanced back just for a second and I saw it in your face. So I left. Isabella tried to remember. Had she looked? Maybe. Unconsciously seeking him out or unconsciously wanting him gone? She honestly didn't know. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. I told you I'd leave if you needed me to. I meant it. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that had once been comfortable but now felt loaded with everything unsaid. Lily wants to know if we can go out for breakfast tomorrow, Ethan said finally, to celebrate. There's that pancake place she loves on Morrison Street. Okay. Okay, we'll go, or okay, you'll let me know. Isabella looked at him, really looked at him. The exhaustion in his face, the careful way he held himself, like he was waiting for her to deliver a verdict. Okay, we'll go, she said, as a family. Something in Ethan's expression eased, not happiness, but relief. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is... She stopped, started again. This is us trying, right? That's what we said. Honest even when it's messy. Right. So here's honest. Isabella pulled her legs up onto the couch, wrapping her arms around her knees. I'm proud of what I did tonight. I'm relieved the vote went well, and I'm still angry at you for lying. All of those things are true at the same time. Ethan nodded slowly. That's fair. And I'm scared, she continued, because I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for some other revelation to come out, for you to turn into someone else again. I'm not going to. You can't promise that. You can't know that. You're right, he admitted. I can't. But I can promise to tell you the truth when you ask for it, even when it's hard, even when it makes you see me differently. Isabella studied him. Who called today? After your CO? 3 former teammates, 2 reporters, someone from a veterans advocacy organization asking if I wanted to speak at their annual gala. He shrugged. I said no to everything. Why? Because that's not my life anymore. I left it behind for a reason. Did you? Leave it behind? Isabella leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you just buried it, and yesterday it came digging its way back out. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. What do you want me to say? I want you to say whether you regret it, the life you had before, whether some part of you wishes you were still out there doing whatever classified things you did instead of making Lily's lunches and taking out the trash. No. The answer came swift and firm. I don't regret leaving, not for a second. But I can't deny that part of me misses the clarity, the sense of purpose. When you're on a mission, everything is clear. You have an objective. You have a team. You execute. And even when things go wrong, even when they go catastrophically wrong, you know you were trying to do the right thing. Versus now, where I second-guess everything, where I wonder if I'm doing enough for Lily, if I'm being a good enough husband, if I'm wasting the skills I spent 12 years developing by using them to evaluate corporate security protocols. He ran a hand through his hair. It's not that I want to go back. It's that civilian life is so much harder in ways I didn't expect. Isabella understood that, the ambiguity of normal life, the way success was measured in increments instead of missions accomplished. I miss the version of you I thought I knew, she said quietly. The uncomplicated one, even though I'm starting to think that version never really existed. He existed, Ethan said. He just wasn't the whole story. No, he wasn't. They looked at each other across the couch, 2 people who'd promised forever without really understanding what they were promising. I should get some sleep, Isabella said, standing. Tomorrow's going to be busy. Contract negotiations, press releases, community outreach planning. Are you... Ethan stopped. Are you sleeping in our room tonight? The question hung in the air between them. I don't know, Isabella admitted. Is that honest enough? It's honest. She walked toward the bedroom, then paused at the doorway. Ethan? Yeah. Thank you for leaving the vote, even if I didn't realize I needed you to. Always, he said simply. Isabella closed herself in the bedroom and leaned against the door. Her body felt hollowed out, triumphant and devastated in equal measure. She'd won her project, lost her certainty, gained an uncomfortable truth. She changed into sleep clothes and climbed into bed. Their bed. The sheets still smelled like Ethan's shampoo. She lay there in the dark, listening to the sounds of the apartment. The refrigerator humming, the building settling, the faint sound of Ethan moving around in the living room. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. A text from Lily's school account. The teacher's aide must have sent it. A photo of Lily's family art project with a caption, "So proud of her presentation today." She told the whole class about how her daddy saves people and her mommy builds beautiful things for the city. Isabella stared at the picture. 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a purple building. A family. Complicated. Messy. Built on imperfect understanding and incomplete truths, but still a family. She set the phone aside and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would bring pancakes and contract negotiations and more questions she didn't have answers for. Tonight she'd won something important, lost something important, and somehow, impossibly, those two things would have to find a way to coexist. Just like her and Ethan, just like the man she'd married and the man she was still learning to know. The certainty she'd built her life on was gone. In its place was something harder, something real. And Isabella fell asleep not knowing if that would be enough, but knowing at least it was honest. The truth she was learning didn't have to be comfortable to be worth telling. It just had to be true. Morning came with Lily jumping on the bed. Isabella surfaced from uneasy sleep to find her stepdaughter bouncing with the kind of energy only 9-year-olds possessed before coffee. "Pancakes," Lily announced, as if this single word explained everything. "Daddy said we're celebrating your big win with pancakes, and I get to order the chocolate chip ones with extra whipped cream because it's a special occasion." Isabella blinked at the ceiling, orienting herself. She'd fallen asleep in their bed, alone. Ethan had apparently spent another night in the guest room. "What time is it?" she managed. 7:30. We have to leave in 30 minutes or we'll miss the good booth by the window." Lily grabbed Isabella's hand and pulled. "Come on, Mommy Isabella. Get up, get up, get up." There was no arguing with this level of enthusiasm. Isabella let herself be dragged out of bed, stumbling toward the bathroom while Lily ran off to terrorize Ethan about something involving her choice of outfit. 28 minutes later, they were walking down Morrison Street toward the pancake house. Lily skipped between them, holding both their hands, narrating an elaborate story about a girl who discovered she could talk to squirrels and use this power to solve crimes. "So then the squirrel tells her that the mayor was actually a robot the whole time," Lily continued, swinging their joined hands. "And that's why he never ate at the town barbecues, because robots can't eat ribs." "That's sound logic," Ethan said, absolutely serious. "Right? That's what I told Madison, but she said it was silly, but I think it's detective work." Isabella caught Ethan's eye over Lily's head. Something passed between them. Not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement. This was what they were protecting. This bright, weird, wonderful kid who saw the world as a place where squirrel detectives and robot mayors made perfect sense. The pancake house was crowded, but they got their window booth. Lily immediately pressed her face to the glass, watching the morning foot traffic, while Ethan and Isabella studied menus they both had memorized. "I'm getting the special," Lily announced without looking. "The one with the chocolate chips and the whipped cream and the strawberries that are probably not as good as the chocolate, but they make it look fancy." "Excellent choice," Ethan said. The waitress came. They ordered. Lily launched into another story, this one about her friend's older brother who was learning to drive and had accidentally backed into a mailbox. "Mrs. Patterson says learning new things means making mistakes," Lily explained, stealing a sugar packet to build some kind of structure. "She says mistakes are how we grow. Is that true?" Isabella felt the question land. Ethan went very still. Yeah, Bug, he said quietly. That's true. So when I got that math problem wrong yesterday, that was growing? Exactly. Good, because I felt really dumb. But if it was actually growing, then I guess it's okay. She added another sugar packet to her precarious tower. Do grown-ups make mistakes too? All the time, Isabella said. Even big ones? Especially big ones. Lily considered this, tongue poking out in concentration as she balanced a final packet on top. But you fixed them, right? The mistakes? Ethan and Isabella looked at each other, really looked at each other for the first time since waking up. We try, Ethan said. We try to fix them. The pancakes arrived, saving them from further philosophical inquiry. Lily dove into her breakfast with single-minded focus, getting whipped cream on her nose within the first 3 bites. Isabella picked at her food, watching the morning unfold through the window. Business suits hurrying to offices, a mother pushing a stroller, 2 teenagers laughing at something on a phone. Normal. Everyone out there living their normal lives, unaware that 3 days ago, Isabella's entire understanding of her marriage had detonated. Her phone buzzed. Work email. Then another. Then 3 more, in rapid succession. You're doing the thing again, Ethan said quietly. Isabella looked up. What thing? The thing where you're here but not here, where your mind is already at the office working through problems. He wasn't wrong. Already she was mentally drafting responses, scheduling meetings, coordinating the next phases of the project. Sorry, she said, putting the phone face down on the table. It's just, there's a lot to handle now that the project is approved. I know. Ethan's voice was gentle. But maybe today you could just celebrate? Just for a few hours? Daddy's right, Lily interjected, chocolate smeared across her cheek. You worked really hard and now you won and you should be happy about it. That's what Mrs. Patterson would say. Isabella found herself smiling despite everything. Mrs. Patterson is very wise. The wisest, Lily agreed solemnly. They finished breakfast, walked home slowly. Lily ran ahead, stopping to examine interesting leaves and a very determined ant carrying a crumb 3 times its size. She's going to ask soon, Ethan said quietly, keeping his voice low enough that Lily couldn't hear. About why I'm sleeping in the guest room. She's too smart not to notice. I know. What do we tell her? Isabella watched Lily crouch down to observe the ant more closely. The truth. A version of it, anyway. That we're working through some grown-up stuff, but we love her and we love each other and we're figuring it out. Are we? Figuring it out? I don't know. Isabella's honesty surprised even herself. But we're trying. That has to count for something. They made it home just as Isabella's phone started ringing in earnest. Marcy, with contract questions. The commission's legal team, with paperwork to review. A reporter who'd somehow gotten her personal number despite Isabella's best efforts to keep it private. I have to take these, she told Ethan apologetically. I know. Go. Work. I'll handle Lily. Isabella escaped to the bedroom and spent the next 3 hours on calls and emails. The professional machinery clicking into place, contracts being drafted, timelines being established. This she understood. This made sense. Around noon, Ethan knocked softly on the door. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but there's someone here to see you. Who? He says his name is Marcus. The name hit Isabella like ice water. Marcus. Her ex-husband. The man she hadn't spoken to in 3 years, not since the divorce was finalized and she'd sworn she'd never waste another second of her life on him. He's here? In our apartment? I didn't let him in, Ethan said quickly. He's waiting in the hallway. I can send him away if you want. Isabella's mind raced. What could Marcus possibly want? How had he even found her address? Then she remembered. The news coverage. Her name and face plastered across articles about Ethan. Of course Marcus would have seen it. Of course he'd use it as an excuse to insert himself back into her life. Where's Lily? At Madison's. Playdate. I'll pick her up at 3. So they were alone. Isabella stood, smoothed her shirt, and walked to the front door. Marcus stood in the hallway looking exactly like she remembered. Expensive suit, styled hair, that particular smile that had once charmed her and now just looked calculated. Bella, he said, using the nickname she'd always hated. You look well. What do you want, Marcus? That's quite a greeting. Can a man check on his ex-wife after seeing her all over the news? No, not you. Not after 3 years of silence. Isabella crossed her arms. Say what you came to say and leave. Marcus's smile didn't falter. I wanted to congratulate you on the Riverside project. That's a big win. Impressive. Thank you. Goodbye. And I wanted to make sure you knew what you were getting into with your new husband. There it was, the real reason. My marriage is none of your business, Isabella said coldly. Isn't it? We were married for 6 years, Bella. I know you, I know how you think, and I know you have a blind spot when it comes to men with secrets. He leaned against the door frame, casual. I looked into him. You're Ethan Cole. Or should I say Captain Ethan Cole? The military records are fascinating reading. You had no right. Public records, mostly. Some of it took a little digging, but nothing illegal. Marcus's expression shifted, something almost sympathetic creeping in. Did you know about the Karajan mission, about the civilian casualty? Isabella's jaw clenched. Get out. I'm trying to help you. This guy you married, he's not who you think he is. He's dangerous, trained to kill. And you brought him into your life around your stepdaughter without even knowing. I said, get out. Bella. Ethan appeared behind Isabella, not aggressive, not threatening, but his presence changed the air in the hallway. She asked you to leave, Ethan said quietly. You should probably do that. Marcus straightened, and Isabella saw something flicker across his face. Fear, maybe, or recognition of the gap between whatever Marcus thought he was and what Ethan actually was. I'm just trying to look out for her, Marcus said, attempting to reclaim some dignity. No, Ethan replied, voice still soft but carrying an edge that raised the hair on Isabella's neck. You're trying to make yourself feel important. You're trying to reassert control over someone who escaped you, and you're about 5 seconds away from me calling building security to remove you. You threatening me? No, I'm informing you. Ethan stepped forward slightly, not into Marcus's space, but close enough. Isabella told you to leave. I'm telling you the same thing. This is your last chance to do it voluntarily. For a moment, Isabella thought Marcus might push back, might try to salvage his wounded pride with posturing, but whatever he saw in Ethan's face convinced him otherwise. Fine, Marcus said, smoothing his suit. I tried to warn you, Bella. When this blows up in your face, remember that. He left. Ethan watched him go all the way to the elevator, waited for the doors to close, then turned back to Isabella. Are you okay? I'm furious, she said. How dare he show up here? How dare he presume to have any opinion about my life? He's worried about you. He's not. He's performing concern so he can feel superior. Isabella pressed her palms to her eyes. He did this throughout our marriage. Positioned himself as the protector, the one who knew better, the one trying to save me from my own poor judgment. And the whole time he was embezzling and cheating and lying about everything that mattered. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, very carefully, Is that what you think I'm doing? Lying about everything that matters? Isabella dropped her hands, looked at him. No, that's not... Marcus lied to make himself look better. You lied to make yourself look smaller. It's different. But it's still lying. Yes, she admitted, it's still lying. They stood in the doorway, neither quite willing to go back inside. The Karajan mission, Isabella said. He mentioned it. I know you told me about it, but was there more? Things you didn't say? Ethan's expression closed down slightly. There's always more. I need to know. Why? So you can judge whether I'm dangerous, whether Marcus was right to warn you? No, so I can understand who you are. All of you. Ethan studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded, once, and walked into the apartment. Isabella followed. They ended up in the living room, sitting on opposite ends of the couch. The same positions as 2 nights ago, when everything first cracked open. The mission brief said the hostages were being held in a compound outside the city, Ethan began, voice flat. Clinical. Intelligence indicated 23 aid workers, all American or European citizens. The extremist group was demanding ransom and the release of prisoners, standard hostage situation. Isabella listened, forcing herself to stay quiet. Let him tell it his way. We inserted at 0300 hours, 6-man team. We had blueprints of the compound, guard rotations, the location where the hostages were supposedly being held. Everything looked clean. He paused. It wasn't clean. What happened? The guards were better trained than intelligence suggested. They had defensive positions we didn't know about. When we breached, we encountered immediate resistance. Heavy resistance. His jaw tightened. We returned fire. Cleared the compound room by room. Standard extraction protocol. But something went wrong. When we reached the hostages, there were only 22. We searched the compound, found the 23rd in a different building, one that wasn't on the blueprints. She was being held separately because she'd tried to escape the day before and they were punishing her. Isabella's stomach turned. The building was dark, Ethan continued. Power had been cut during the firefight. I entered with night vision, weapon ready, saw movement in the back corner, called out for identification. No response. Movement again. I assessed the threat, someone armed based on the silhouette. I took the shot. He stopped, swallowed hard. She wasn't armed. She was holding a piece of rebar she'd pulled from the wall, trying to defend herself because she heard gunfire and didn't know if we were rescuers or more extremists. The night vision distorted the image, made it look like a weapon, and His voice cracked slightly. I didn't double check. I saw a threat and I eliminated it. That's what I was trained to do. Isabella felt tears burning her eyes. Ethan, her name was Rachel Summers, 26 years old, from Columbus, Ohio. She'd been in country for 8 months building water purification systems. She survived 3 weeks as a hostage just to be killed by the people trying to save her. He looked at Isabella, and his eyes were devastated. And I'm the one who pulled the trigger. It was a mistake, a terrible, tragic mistake, but nothing. She's dead. Her parents buried an empty casket because her body was too damaged to send home. And I got a commendation for the mission because we saved 22 people. The bitterness in his voice was corrosive. Do you understand now? This is what Marcus was warning you about. This is who I am. Someone who can make that kind of mistake and keep going. Someone who's killed enough people that one more just becomes a statistic I carry. Isabella moved before she could think, crossed the couch and wrapped her arms around him. Ethan went rigid. For a moment she thought he'd push her away. Then he crumpled, his face pressing into her shoulder, his whole body shaking with sobs he'd probably been holding in for years. She held him, just held him while he broke apart. I'm sorry, he gasped between sobs. I'm so sorry. I should have checked. I should have confirmed. I should have... Stop, Isabella said fiercely. Stop torturing yourself. You made a decision in an impossible situation with incomplete information. You're not a monster for that. You're human. Tell that to her parents. I can't. But I can tell you that carrying this guilt doesn't bring her back. It just destroys you. And I don't think Rachel Summers would want that. Ethan pulled back, wiping his face roughly. You don't know what she'd want. No, but I know what I want. I want you to forgive yourself. I want you to stop punishing yourself by hiding who you are. I want... She stopped, surprised by the conviction in her own voice. I want my husband back. Not the sanitized version, the real one. Scars and all. Ethan looked at her with something like wonder. You mean that? I do. And she realized she did. Somewhere in the last 3 days, in the chaos and confusion and painful honesty, she'd stopped wanting the simple version of Ethan and started wanting the true one. Even if the truth was complicated. Even if it hurt. I'm still angry, she said. About the lies. About the hiding. But I understand why you did it. And I understand that the person who climbed that truck, who talked down that gunman, that's part of you too. Not all of you. But part, and I can't ask you to amputate pieces of yourself just to make me comfortable. I'm not asking you to be comfortable with what I've done. I know, but maybe I can be comfortable with who you are now, the person those experiences created. She touched his face. You left that life, Ethan. You chose Lily. You chose me. That matters. Does it? Does choosing matter when the consequences of my past keep showing up? When Marcus can dig up my service record and use it to try to scare you? When reporters want to turn me into some kind of hero despite what I've actually done? Isabella thought about that, about the news coverage and Fitzgerald's test and the way the last 3 days had felt like standing in a spotlight she never asked for. Yes, she said finally. It matters, because you could have stayed in that life. I'm not sure I have figured it out. 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 I'm out. Neither am I. But we can figure it out together. She smiled weakly. That's what marriage is, right? Figuring out the hard stuff together? I thought marriage was supposed to be partnership and mutual support and splitting the chores evenly. That too. But also this. The messy, complicated stuff that doesn't fit neatly into wedding vows. They sat together in silence for a while. A different kind of silence than before. Not empty. Full. Finally, Ethan spoke. I need to pick up Lily soon. Okay. Will you come with me? Isabella hesitated. She had work, contracts to review, calls to return, 100 professional obligations that had piled up while she'd been navigating her personal crisis. But she also had this fragile, tentative reconnection with her husband, this moment where they were both finally being honest. The work would still be there in an hour. Yeah, she said, I'll come. They walked to Madison's house together, hands almost touching but not quite, still finding their way back to each other. Lily burst out of Madison's front door like a small tornado, chattering about the elaborate game they'd invented involving superheroes and dragons and something called the pizza dimension. Can Madison come over tomorrow? Lily asked, bouncing between them. Please? We want to build a fort, and we need both our living rooms to make it big enough. We'll see, Ethan said automatically. That means yes, Lily announced triumphantly. They walked home through the afternoon sunlight. Lily ran ahead again, stopping to examine everything that caught her attention. An interesting rock, a dog being walked, 2 birds having what appeared to be an argument on a telephone wire. She's fearless, Isabella observed. Like someone else I know, Ethan replied, glancing at her. I'm not fearless. I'm terrified most of the time. But you do it anyway. That's the definition of courage. Isabella thought about the last 3 days. The vote. The confrontation with Marcus. This conversation they'd just had where she'd chosen honesty over comfort. Maybe, she said, or maybe it's just stubbornness. I'll take stubborn over fearful any day. They reached their building, rode the elevator up with Lily still narrating her afternoon adventures, let themselves into the apartment. I'm starving, Lily announced. Can we have mac and cheese? You had pancakes for breakfast and pizza at Madison's for lunch, Ethan pointed out. Your point? Despite everything, despite the crying and the confessions and the emotional exhaustion, Isabella laughed, really laughed. Lily looked at her, confused. What's funny? Nothing, sweetheart. Everything. I don't even know anymore. But she felt lighter somehow, like something that had been pressing on her chest for 3 days had finally eased. Ethan made mac and cheese. Isabella set the table. Lily colored at the counter, creating an elaborate scene involving dinosaurs and spacesuits. Normal. They were being normal again, except it wasn't the same normal as before. This one had cracks in it. Visible, undeniable cracks. But maybe that was okay. Maybe the cracks were where the light got in. They ate dinner, gave Lily a bath, read her a story. The one about the magical girl, with Ethan doing all the voices the way he always did. When Lily was finally asleep, Isabella and Ethan stood in the hallway between the master bedroom and the guest room. I don't know where we go from here, Isabella admitted. Neither do I. But I want to figure it out, if you do. I do. Ethan reached out, tentative, and took her hand. I really do. They stood there, hands linked, suspended between what they'd been and what they might become. One day at a time, Isabella suggested. One day at a time, Ethan agreed. That night, he slept in the guest room again. But the door stayed open, and sometime around 2 a.m., when Isabella couldn't sleep and wandered into the kitchen for water, she found him there too. They sat at the table in the dark, not talking, just being together in their sleeplessness. And it felt like a beginning, not of something new, but of something honest, something real, something strong enough to carry the weight of everything they'd both been hiding. The crisis came 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday that started like any other. Isabella was at the construction site for the Riverside project, hard hat on, reviewing foundation work with the site manager. The morning was crisp and productive, sunlight glinting off the river while machinery hummed in purposeful rhythm. Everything was proceeding on schedule, under budget even. Her phone rang. Marcy's name flashed on the screen. I'm at the site, Isabella answered. Unless the building's on fire, it can wait. It can't wait. Marcy's voice was tight. Turn on the news, any channel, now. Isabella's stomach dropped. She excused herself, walking away from the construction noise to a quieter spot by the river's edge. Pulled up a news app on her phone. The headline hit her like a physical blow. Construction accident at Kane and Associates downtown. Project, multiple injuries, allegations of safety violations. Below it, photos. Her company's logo. The downtown commercial building they'd been working on for 6 months. Ambulances. Workers on stretchers. How bad? Isabella managed. 3 workers injured, 1 seriously. OSHA is already on site. And Isabella, Marcy's voice dropped. The preliminary report suggests faulty scaffolding. Equipment that should have been inspected wasn't. The safety coordinator is claiming he flagged concerns 2 weeks ago and was told to keep working. That's not possible. We have protocols, multiple checkpoints. I know, but that's what he's saying, and there are already protesters gathering outside the main office. Media calling it corporate negligence. Some outlets are connecting it to your Riverside approval, suggesting you cut corners to meet deadlines. Isabella's mind raced through the implications. This could destroy everything. The Riverside project could be suspended pending investigation. Her company's reputation, built over 8 years of meticulous work, could evaporate overnight. I'm heading to the office now, she said. Call our legal team. Tell them to prepare a statement, but don't release anything until I review it. And Marcy, find out exactly what happened. Not what people are saying, what actually happened. She hung up and immediately called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. Hey, how's the site? There's been an accident at the downtown project. It's bad, Ethan. Really bad. His voice shifted instantly. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine. I wasn't there. But workers are injured and there are allegations of safety violations, and this could destroy the company. She heard her voice starting to spiral, forced herself to breathe. I need to get to the office. Can you handle Lily pickup? Of course. Isabella, listen to me. Whatever's happening, you can handle it. One step at a time. Oh, what if I can't? What if this is too big? Then you don't handle it alone. A pause. Do you want me there? At the office? She almost said no. Almost defaulted to the old pattern of handling professional crises solo while Ethan stayed in his lane. But something had shifted in the last 2 weeks. The walls between their separate worlds had started coming down. Yes, she said. After you get Lily situated. Yes, I want you there. I'll be there. Isabella drove to the office with her mind spinning through worst-case scenarios. Lawsuits, criminal charges. The Riverside project canceled. Workers permanently injured because of failures she should have prevented. The scene outside her building confirmed her fears. Protesters with signs, safety over profits, workers' lives matter. Your designs aren't worth our blood. News vans lined the street, cameras tracking her as she parked and walked toward the entrance. Miss Kane, can you comment on the allegations? Were you aware of the safety violations? Do you take responsibility for the injuries? She kept her head down, pushed through the crowd, and made it inside. Her staff looked terrified. Marcy met her at the elevator with a tablet full of information, none of it good. The seriously injured workers in surgery, Marcy said as they rode up. Crushed leg. The other two have broken bones and lacerations. OSHA has shut down the site pending investigation. And there's a problem. Just one? A big one. The safety coordinator who's making the allegations? Tom Bradford. He's worked with us for 3 years. Good record. No history of complaints. And he has emails. Isabella's heart sank. What kind of emails? Ones he sent to project management 2 weeks ago detailing concerns about the scaffolding supplier, claiming the equipment wasn't properly certified, saying we should halt work until it was verified. Who did he send them to? Marcy hesitated. David Chen. David. Her senior project manager, the one she trusted to handle the day-to-day oversight while she focused on the Riverside project. They reached her office. David was already there, looking pale and defensive. It's not what it looks like, he started immediately. Then what is it? Isabella's voice was ice. I got the emails, but I checked with the supplier. They assured me everything was certified, showed me documentation. It looked legitimate. Did you verify it independently? David's silence was answer enough. You took a supplier's word on safety certification without independent verification. Isabella felt her control starting to crack. That's not our protocol. That's not even close to our protocol. We were behind schedule. You were pushing for the Riverside project, and this one was already delayed. And I thought, you thought you'd cut corners to make me happy? Her voice rose despite her best efforts. 3 people are in the hospital, David. One of them might lose his leg because you didn't do your job. I made a mistake. But it's not just my fault. The supplier lied. The certifications were forged. How was I supposed to know? By checking! By following the protocols we have in place specifically to prevent this. The office door opened. Ethan slipped in quietly, assessed the situation instantly, and positioned himself against the back wall. Not interfering, just present. Isabella turned back to David. You're suspended, effective immediately, pending the investigation. If OSHA finds you criminally negligent, you're on your own. The company won't protect you. Isabella, please, get out of my office. David left, shoulders slumped. The door closed behind him. Isabella stood there shaking, the enormity of it crashing over her. Her company. Her reputation. Workers who'd trusted her to keep them safe. What do I do? She whispered. Marcy, what do I do? Marcy looked uncertain. Legal says we should minimize liability. Don't admit fault. Let OSHA complete the investigation. Settle with the injured workers privately. That's the corporate playbook. Protect the company, minimize damage. It's the smart play. Isabella walked to her window. The protesters were still there. More had gathered. She could see their signs even from 7 floors up. It's also the wrong play, she said quietly. Isabella, those workers got hurt because we failed them. Not because of bad luck, not because of an unavoidable accident, because someone in my company, someone I trusted, didn't follow our safety protocols. She turned back. I'm not hiding from that. I'm not minimizing it. I'm taking responsibility. The lawyers will have a heart attack, Marcy warned. Let them. Isabella pulled out her phone. I'm calling a press conference. Today, this afternoon. I'm going to face this head on. Marcy's eyes widened. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. For the next 2 hours, Isabella prepared. She called the hospitals, spoke with the injured workers' families, promised to cover all medical expenses regardless of insurance. She reviewed every detail of the accident, every failure point, every decision that had led to this moment, and she wrote a statement. Not the careful, liability-minimizing corporate speak her lawyers wanted. Something honest. Something that acknowledged the failure and took ownership. Ethan stayed in her office the whole time, mostly quiet. But when she looked up from her notes, he was there. Steady, present. "Your legal team is going to quit," he observed. "Probably. The board might revolt." "They might. You could lose everything." Isabella met his eyes. "I could, but I can't look at myself in the mirror if I handle this like Marcus would have. All PR spin and blame deflection. Those workers deserve better. The city deserves better." "I know." Ethan stood, walked over to her desk. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Even if it destroys the company, even then, because you're choosing integrity over survival." "That takes more courage than most people have." She almost laughed. This from the man who ran toward a burning truck. Different kind of courage. That was instinct. This is choice. He touched her hand briefly. "I'm proud of you." The press conference was scheduled for 4 p.m. in the building's lobby. Isabella changed into a more formal suit, checked her statement one more time, and rode the elevator down with her stomach in knots. The lobby was packed. Reporters, camera crews, protesters who'd been allowed inside. Her staff watching from the mezzanine. And in the back, almost invisible, Ethan. Their eyes met across the room. He nodded once. "You've got this." Isabella stepped up to the microphone. "Good afternoon. My name is Isabella Kane, CEO of Kane & Associates. I'm here to address this morning's accident at our downtown construction site and to take full responsibility for the failures that led to 3 workers being injured." She felt the room shift. Reporters leaned forward, cameras focused. "This morning, at approximately 9:15 a.m., scaffolding collapsed at our Morrison Street project. 3 workers fell approximately 20 feet. One suffered serious injuries and is currently in surgery. The other 2 sustained fractures and lacerations. All 3 are receiving the best medical care available, and Kane & Associates will cover all medical expenses, lost wages, and rehabilitation costs for as long as necessary." Isabella took a breath. The preliminary investigation suggests that the scaffolding was not properly certified. Our safety coordinator, Tom Bradford, flagged these concerns 2 weeks ago. His concerns were not adequately addressed. Equipment that should have been independently verified was not. Protocols that exist specifically to prevent this type of accident were not followed. The room was absolutely silent. This is unacceptable. It represents a catastrophic failure of oversight at every level of our organization. As CEO, I take full responsibility. These workers trusted us to keep them safe. We failed that trust. A reporter's hand shot up. Isabella ignored it. Effective immediately, all Kane & Associates construction sites are suspending work pending comprehensive safety audits. We are cooperating fully with OSHA's investigation. Any employee found to have violated safety protocols will face consequences up to and including termination. And we are implementing new independent safety verification systems across all projects. Another breath, the hardest part. I want to be clear. This is not an insurance issue or a legal issue. This is a moral issue. 3 men went to work this morning expecting to come home safely to their families. Because of failures in my company, they didn't. No amount of money or legal maneuvering changes that. The only thing that matters now is ensuring this never happens again and supporting these workers and their families through recovery. She paused, looking out at the crowd. I know many of you have questions. I'll answer what I can, but first I want to address the protesters outside. She looked directly at a group of workers near the door. You're right to be angry. You're right to demand accountability. Your signs say workers' lives matter. They do. More than profits, more than timelines, more than my company's reputation. And if I haven't demonstrated that through my actions until now, I'm going to demonstrate it going forward. The questions came fast and fierce. Isabella answered each one honestly. Yes, she knew about the Riverside project creating pressure on other projects. Yes, she acknowledged that organizational culture started at the top. No, she wasn't blaming her project manager entirely, though he bore responsibility for his specific failures. At one point, a reporter asked, "Isn't this press conference just damage control? A PR stunt to minimize liability?" Isabella looked directly at the camera. If this was PR, my lawyers would have written very different remarks. They advised me not to admit fault, not to take personal responsibility, to minimize, deflect, and protect the company's interests. I'm not doing that because this isn't about protecting my company. It's about doing the right thing. The press conference lasted 45 minutes. When it ended, Isabella felt hollowed out, exhausted, but also lighter somehow. She told the truth, even though it might cost her everything. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Within an hour, 2 board members had called demanding her resignation. 3 major clients requested meetings to discuss concerns. The legal team sent a strongly worded memo about liability exposure. But something else happened too. The protesters outside began dispersing. Not angry anymore. Some even nodding with what looked like respect. Tom Bradford, the safety coordinator, released a statement saying Isabella's honesty had restored his faith in the company. And the hospital called to report that the seriously injured worker, a man named James Torres, wanted to speak with her. Isabella went to the hospital immediately. Ethan drove, sensing she was too wrung out to be behind the wheel. James Torres was in his mid-40s, heavily bandaged, leg in traction. His wife sat beside his bed, eyes red from crying. "Ms. Kane," Torres said when Isabella entered. His voice was rough from anesthesia. "Mr. Torres, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I watched your press conference on the TV here." He gestured weakly at the mounted screen. "My wife recorded it." Isabella waited, bracing for anger, accusations, the righteous fury she deserved. "Thank you," Torres said instead. Isabella blinked. "What?" "Thank you for not hiding, for not making excuses, for standing up there and telling the truth." His wife grabbed his hand. 23 years I've been in construction. This is the first time a boss ever took responsibility when things went wrong. Usually it's all lawyers and paperwork, and nobody giving a damn about the guy in the hospital bed. "I give a damn," Isabella said fiercely, "and I'm going to make this right. Whatever you need, you already are." Torres's eyes were getting heavy, the pain medication kicking in. "Just keep being honest. Keep caring about the guys doing the work. That matters more than you know." His wife walked Isabella to the door. "He might lose the leg," she said quietly. "They won't know for a few more days. But even if he does, thank you for not treating him like a liability, for treating him like a person." Isabella made it to Ethan's car before she started crying. He held her in the hospital parking lot while she shook with the weight of it all. The fear and the relief and the exhaustion mixing together into something too big to contain. "I might lose everything," she said into his shoulder. "You might. The company, the Riverside project, everything I've built. Maybe. But I can't regret it. Is that crazy? Even if it all falls apart, I can't regret telling the truth." Ethan pulled back to look at her. "That's not crazy. That's integrity. That's the woman I fell in love with." Something in Isabella's chest cracked open. "I've been so angry at you for hiding, for lying by omission. But I've been hiding too, haven't I? Behind professional distance, behind the idea that work and life are separate, behind the assumption that being strong meant handling everything alone." "We've both been hiding," Ethan agreed. "From each other, from ourselves. I don't want to hide anymore." "Neither do I." They sat in the car as the afternoon bled into evening. Then Ethan drove them home where Lily was waiting with Mrs. Chen, full of questions about why both her parents looked so sad. "We had a hard day at work," Isabella told her. "Sometimes being a grown-up means making difficult choices." "Like when I had to tell Mrs. Patterson that I forgot my homework?" Lily asked seriously. "Exactly like that." "But you told the truth anyway?" "We did." "Then it'll be okay," Lily said with the absolute certainty of 9 years old. "Mrs. Patterson says telling the truth is always right, even when it's hard." Isabella hugged her stepdaughter tight. "Mrs. Patterson is very wise." That night, after Lily was asleep, Isabella and Ethan finally talked. Really talked. Not about the accident or the press conference or the professional fallout that was coming. About them. "I want you to move back into our bedroom," Isabella said. "Not because everything's fixed, but because I miss you. And I think we can figure out the unfixed parts better if we're not sleeping in separate rooms." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm sure I love you. I'm sure I want to make this work. The rest we can figure out as we go. Even the messy parts? Especially the messy parts. So Ethan moved back into their bedroom. And it was awkward at first, like learning to sleep next to someone for the first time all over again. But it was also right. The next week was chaos. The OSHA investigation continued. The board called emergency meetings. 2 clients did cancel contracts, but 3 others called to express support for Isabella's handling of the crisis. And the Riverside Development Commission issued a statement saying they saw no reason to suspend the project based on Isabella's transparent response and immediate corrective actions. More importantly, James Torres survived, kept his leg, started physical therapy with Kane and Associates paying for everything, plus a settlement that would ensure his family's financial security, regardless of whether he could return to construction work. Tom Bradford was promoted to Director of Safety, with expanded authority to shut down any project that raised concerns, and David Chen was let go, despite his protests that he was being scapegoated. Isabella made peace with that decision. He'd made choices that endangered lives. There had to be consequences. 3 weeks after the accident, Isabella was back at the Riverside site. Groundbreaking was scheduled for the following Monday. The sun was setting over the river, painting everything gold and orange. Ethan appeared beside her, Lily in tow. The girl was supposed to be at soccer practice, but Ethan had apparently decided family time was more important. "Daddy says this is where you're building the park," Lily said, spinning in a circle. "It's going to be so big." "It is," Isabella agreed. "Want to see the plans?" She pulled them up on her tablet, showing Lily the renderings, the green spaces and walking paths, the playground designed for kids of all abilities, the community garden plots. "Can we get a plot?" Lily asked. "Can we grow tomatoes like we did before?" "We can try," Ethan said, "though my tomatoes are always disappointing." "That's because you talk to them too much," Isabella teased. "You make them self-conscious." "Plants need encouragement. Plants need sunlight and water, not life coaching." Lily giggled, delighted by her parents' banter. "You're both weird." "Probably," Isabella agreed. They stood together watching the river flow past, the city beginning to light up around them. This place that had been neglected for decades would become something beautiful, something that served the community, something that mattered. Isabella had almost lost everything to make it happen. Her company had been tested. Her marriage had been tested. She'd been tested. But they'd come through it, not unscathed, not unchanged, but together. "I got a call today," Ethan said quietly, after Lily had run off to examine something by the water's edge. "From my former CO. He's seen the news coverage, wants to know if I'd consider coming back, not active duty, training role, sharing my experience with new operators." Isabella's breath caught. "What did you say?" "I said I'd think about it." He looked at her. "I'm not going to hide that part of myself anymore. But I'm also not going to make decisions that affect our family without talking to you first. So I'm talking to you. What do you think?" Isabella considered. A month ago, she would have felt threatened by this, by Ethan engaging with his past, by anything that reminded her he was more complicated than she'd wanted him to be. Now she saw it differently. He wasn't trying to go back to who he was. He was trying to integrate all the pieces of himself into who he was becoming. "I think," she said carefully, "that you have knowledge and experience that could save lives. I think you've spent 4 years trying to bury a part of yourself that won't stay buried, and I think maybe instead of hiding it, you should figure out how to use it in a way that feels right. Even if it means occasional travel, speaking engagements, being more visible. Even then, as long as you're honest with me, as long as we're partners in these decisions." Ethan took her hand. "Partners. Partners," she confirmed, "in all of it. The work stuff and the family stuff and the messy, complicated stuff that doesn't fit into neat categories. That's a lot of stuff. We can handle it." Lily came running back, holding something small and muddy. "Look, I found a rock that looks like a dinosaur egg. Can we take it home?" "That's definitely a rock that looks like a rock," Ethan observed. "You're not looking at it right. See? The bumpy part is where the baby dinosaur is going to hatch." "My mistake. Clearly a dinosaur egg." They walked back to the car as the evening deepened into night. Lily chattered about her dinosaur egg and the fort she wanted to build, and whether they could get pizza for dinner. Normal. They were being normal. Except normal looked different now. It included Ethan's past and Isabella's ambitions, and the understanding that they were both complicated people trying to build something good together. That night, after Lily was asleep and the dishes were done and the emails were answered, Isabella and Ethan sat on their couch, not on opposite ends anymore, together in the middle. "I've been thinking," Isabella said, "about what strength means." "Yeah? I always thought it meant not needing anyone, being self-sufficient, handling everything myself." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "But that's not strength. That's just fear wearing a different costume." "What do you think it means now?" "I think it means being honest even when it's terrifying. It means asking for help even when it feels like weakness. It means choosing vulnerability over protection." She looked up at him. "It means letting you be complicated and messy and human, and letting you see me be the same." Ethan kissed her forehead. "I can work with that definition." "Good, because it's the only one I've got." They sat in comfortable silence, the city lights twinkling beyond their windows. Everything had changed in the last month. Everything and nothing. Isabella had won her project and nearly lost her company, had discovered her husband was a stranger, and then discovered he was exactly who he'd always been, just more so. Had faced a crisis that could have destroyed her and came through it with her integrity intact. And Ethan had stopped hiding. Had started the slow process of integrating his past with his present. Had learned that being seen, really seen, didn't mean being vulnerable in a dangerous way. It meant being loved fully instead of partially. They still had work to do. Therapy sessions to schedule, because they both agreed they needed professional help navigating this new honesty. Conversations to have with Lily as she got older and started asking harder questions. A marriage to rebuild on a foundation of truth instead of comfortable assumptions. But they had time. They had commitment. And they had each other. "Hey," Ethan said softly. "Hey," Isabella replied. "I love you. All of you. The brilliant CEO and the scared woman and the fierce stepmother and everything in between. I love you too. The gentle father and the trained soldier and the man who cries at animated movies and everything in between. Even the parts that mess up the tomatoes? Especially those parts. They stayed there until late, just being together. Not solving problems or planning futures or managing crises. Just existing in the same space, honest and present and entirely themselves. And somewhere in the quiet of that evening, Isabella realized something fundamental had shifted. She'd spent so long trying to control her life, to manage every variable, to be strong by being invulnerable. But real strength wasn't invulnerability. It was resilience. The ability to break and bend and crack open and still keep growing, like the river outside carving its path through the city, not fighting the obstacles but flowing around them, persistent and patient and powerful in its constancy. That's what they were building now. Not a perfect marriage, not a simple life, but something real and resilient and worth fighting for. The Riverside project would be completed in stages over the next 3 years. Isabella would oversee every phase, building something that would outlast her, something that would serve the community for generations. Ethan would eventually accept a consulting role with his old unit, teaching young operators how to make impossible decisions and live with the consequences. He'd travel occasionally, but he'd always come home. To Lily, to Isabella, to the life he'd chosen. And Lily would grow up watching her parents be imperfectly, honestly, courageously human. Would learn that love meant seeing someone fully and choosing them anyway. That strength meant vulnerability. That families were built not on perfection but on persistent, patient choosing. Years later, when people asked Isabella about the turning point in her career, she'd tell them about the Riverside Project, about the groundbreaking ceremony attended by hundreds, about the first summer when families packed the new green spaces and kids splashed in the water features and elderly residents rested on those carefully designed benches. But when they asked about the turning point in her life, she'd think about a different moment, about sirens splitting a morning open, about a truck on fire, and a man she thought she knew becoming someone entirely different and entirely the same. About learning that the strongest kind of love wasn't the easiest kind. It was the kind that looked at someone's full complexity, their light and shadow both, and said yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to the messy work of actually knowing another person. Yes to being known in return. That Tuesday evening, sitting on the couch with her husband, Isabella didn't know any of this yet. She just knew she was tired and grateful and tentatively hopeful. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, more contract negotiations, more physical therapy visits with James Torres, more conversations with Lily about why grown-ups sometimes made mistakes and how they tried to fix them. But tonight, she had this: the warmth of Ethan's hand in hers, the sound of Lily's soft breathing from her bedroom, the city sparkling outside their window like a promise. "Ready for bed?" Ethan asked. "Yeah," Isabella said. "Let's go to bed." And they did, together, in the same room, the same bed, the same life they were building one honest day at a time. Not perfect, not simple, but real. And strong enough to hold them both, strong enough to last.